Welcome to Thrive. This is your host, Annu Gaidhu. Today we have Julie Doan, who is a pharmacist as well as a health coach, here to share with us some information on polycystic ovary syndrome, how she helps women manage PCOS symptoms, as well as look at a holistic approach to how we can sustain our health, as well as taking an overall look more than just pills. And so without further ado, let's welcome in Julie. Namaste and hello, Julie. Welcome to Thrive.
Yes, hi, Annu. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for Greeniche too, for the opportunity to have this conversation together.
I'm so excited to have you on today, only because I just really love your philosophy of less pills and more health. I really loved seeing that on your website. And just before I start off any conversation with anybody, I would love to know just kind of what's been helping you thrive during this time through the pandemic.
So what has been helping me, I would say a lot of my focus has been on mental health in the last year and a half, because I feel like on terms of physical health, because of through my trainings as a health coach, I've really been able to find the foods that support me well. But in terms of my mental health, it's kind of allowed me to see like, oh, okay, I need a little bit more sleep, allow myself to rest when I really, need it. And I also been receiving support from a life coach and just really being okay with asking for help during this time, which is, I'll be honest, new for me. So I think the pandemic just really gave me this opportunity to reach out and find ways to better support myself.
I love that because of you mentioned that you also were speaking to a life coach, and with yourself, you're a pharmacist and also a health coach. And so I wanted to kind of know the difference in, if you can help share what health coaching is to you, how you went from a pharmacist to health coaching, and now with the integration of life coaching, what that kind of means in your experience.
So, if I just begin with, as a pharmacist, my traditional training was really about, seeing how I can help people regain their health through medication. And, I definitely see there is an important place for medication, especially for life-threatening acute situations. When I was faced with helping patients who were dealing with chronic conditions, so let's say very severe diabetes, I saw that no matter how much medication we would give them, how much insulin we would increase their doses to, it wouldn't necessarily have the greatest effect if we didn't also address their nutrition, their exercise, their stress management, and all of that. And I personally found that I was lacking those tools to help them really in terms of their lifestyle habits. So that's, I guess, where it kind of brought me to health coaching, to be able to receive more tools. And we could always go into this later, but I had also some of my own personal health issues that led me to also become interested more in holistic nutrition and health coaching. And the way I see health coaching is, the way I integrate it's really in terms of the lifestyle habits. How can we create a lifestyle habit or a lifestyle in general that really supports our health? So while in the conventional medicine or just in my pharmacy training was about, how can we help cure sickness or help somebody who's sick? But in terms of health coaching is, how can we create a lifestyle that helps us thrive? So maybe we might start in a pain point where we are sick, and so we'll take care of that. But after, how can we just keep on maintaining that help for us to feel our best and to live, a great, long and balanced life. And in terms of life coaching, how I've been integrating that into my own practices, while I had beautiful tools to help people in terms of the knowledge, okay, these are the kind of foods that are going to really make your energy more stable. These are the foods that are going to help you with your hormones. I found that they were also living with challenges that came from mindset. So whether it was the relationship with food, relationship with their body, them growing up with a story of I have no discipline, I have no willpower, and just being really able to rewrite those stories that they have about themselves, that has been blocking them from actually implementing these lifestyle habits that ultimately, will support them.
I really appreciate, just your story about wanting to support people holistically and not just being able to look at what it is that is the immediate need, but then also how you can support that. And my question to you was, in your experience as a pharmacist, is that something that you found was lacking, that people needed support with greatly when it comes to sustaining? And what was it about the holistic support that was missing that you find that they really needed help with in understanding?
I guess there's different things in a sense that for sure in a conventional healthcare system, we're just really taught to, as you mentioned, just take care of the immediate need versus looking at, okay, well, what's actually causing you to have all of these issues? So more like the root cause or the main contributors, right? So that was definitely lacking. The other part of it is, I forgot the exact number, but there was like saying that how an average appointment with a healthcare professional lasts maybe somewhere between like 5 and 10 minutes, right? And there's definitely not a possibility to dive in deeper into that. And especially if we're thinking about a holistic approach, there's so many layers to why a person does something or why a person is eating in a certain way. And just within that conventional healthcare system, we're just not able to do that, So I think there's that was definitely lacking. And also I kind of touched on this a bit, but the general idea of there's so much focus on illness instead of the focus on, actually preventative kind of healthcare, preventative medicine, or I call it even, thriving medicine. It's like, how can we actually focus on health versus just always focusing on sickness? So there's definitely a place for that, but we just also have to bring the focus on the other elements of what it means to be healthy, what it means to be well, and the overall idea of wellness.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up that mention of a normal appointment with a healthcare specialist or a doctor would be 5 to 10 minutes long. And as an Ayurvedic practitioner, our initial consults are 90 minutes. And, that's a large part and due to looking at those other areas of your life, the other pillars that can contribute, such as, diet, lifestyle, and especially when it comes to your menstrual cycle. And that was a huge, huge piece that I found to be unique in an assessment when you're looking at health, but also something that's so I guess missing or taboo, or a lot of people don't really talk about it, maybe don't know how to support themselves through their menstrual cycle if they're having any issues like that. And so with yourself, I know that, you help women overcome symptoms of PCOS. And with PCOS, I just learned about this more so this year, the polycystic ovary syndrome. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that, of why specialize in PCOS as opposed to anything else? And what is your experience with working with women for that?
Yeah. So I guess where I would start off is I didn't initially have an initial interest in PCOS. For me, as a pharmacist, the cardiovascular health and also prediabetes, diabetes was my thing that I still love very much. And one of the, I guess you can call it the contributing factors or root cause of that is insulin resistance, when your body develops this condition. And insulin resistance actually plays a big contributing role in PCOS. So it's kind of through that when I had clients come to me with prediabetes who also had this condition PCOS, and that was very related to their current other medical conditions. So through that is when I became really interested in knowing more about PCOS, and also because PCOS does have long-term risk factors for illness. And for me as a pharmacist, and kind of like, I said in my tagline, less pills, more health, is how can we how can we reduce the unnecessary need of medication that are sometimes used as Band-Aids, We can talk about this later in PCOS, like what kind of medication are given to women with PCOS, but how can we actually start, decreasing that in order to increase their health. So it was kind of through my interest of prediabetes and diabetes, that I learned more about PCOS. And the more and more I learned about PCOS, this was like an old statistic, 2008, but I saw like a study. It said in Canada, about 1.4 million women are living with PCOS. And despite it being one of the most common endocrine conditions occurring with women in the conventional medicine world, diagnosis, the management, and also what are the long-term risk factors, it's still very blurry. And even when I recall from my pharmacy studies, it's not something we learn much about. So whenever I see there's like a large number of people affected by a condition and there's so many question marks, I mean, for me, the healthcare professional in me says, I want to see how I can better help these people. I want to see how I can better help them understand what's going on. And through that, it's where I got interest more and more in PCOS. And just on a side note, the menstrual cycle, similar to you, this was not something I was used to approaching in my healthcare assessment, but as you've probably heard, our menstrual cycle is a vital sign, is a way of our body communicating to us, if something's off or not. And in PCOS, the menstrual cycle is often either missing or completely irregulated. So that is my kind of long answer to how I got interested in PCOS.
I love it, only because just the statistic you had mentioned and how important that is, that 1 in every 4 women, and the connection that you had drawn between, being insulin resistant and PCOS and having symptoms of that. I was wondering if we can kind of backtrack and just kind of talk about what is PCOS to begin with, and why is it one of the most common hormone disorders for women?
Yeah, of course. So just a little, maybe I didn't say correctly, but it's 1.4 million. So not 1 in 4 women, but 1.4 million. Yeah. So PCOS, I mean, again, it's going to be a little bit of a vague answer because it's what you call a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning that all the other conditions that could possibly contribute to similar symptoms must have been what we call ruled out. So meaning like, okay, it's not this condition, not this condition. So we kind of left with this, vague condition called polycystic ovary syndrome. So even in the name syndrome, it's not necessarily very precise. It's just kind of like a myriad of symptoms that can't be explained by really other conditions. So I know that's a vague definition, but that's kind of how it's defined in the medical world. And in terms of like cause, even that is not 100% clear, but we know that there are definitely a lot of different contributing factors to PCOS. So before I go into that, in terms of how PCOS is, let's say, diagnosed, it's usually through like an ultrasound and through blood test. And there's something called a Rotterdam criteria that says, like, if you have 2 of these 3 conditions or whatever criteria, then you most likely have PCOS. So that is an ultrasound. If you see that you have what we call cysts in your ovaries, there's also if you have high androgen levels, so usually like high testosterone levels, and also if in terms of your menstrual cycle, there's delayed ovulation, or there's just like, it's shown that you just don't ovulate at your menstrual cycle. So that's kind of how it's like diagnosed. And I mean, before I go on into like what can contribute to PCOS, I just want to maybe take a little pause there and see if you wanted to add anything to that.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for that. Cause I kind of immediately what comes to mind is, if you don't have a menstrual cycle, then what are some of the complications that can come from that? And so, it sounds like that there's a lot of things that are linked with PCOS, but in terms of it being one definable reason as to why you can get it, that's still a little bit gray in that area. Is that right?
Exactly. And one of the reasons it's gray is, we'll get to this soon enough, but like there's about like 7 to 8 contributors, in terms of lifestyle that really affect PCOS. And depending on your main, like your 2 or 3 main contributors, your symptom can be very different. So somebody with PCOS that's caused by insulin resistance, so dysregulation in blood sugar levels, their PCOS presentation can look very different from somebody who has a PCOS caused by inflammation. So again, that's why it's still very confusing, because even let's say as a physician diagnosing this, if you're just going on just based on symptoms, it's going to look very it's going to have you're going to have a hard time, creating this picture of a person that has PCOS versus, somebody who, typical symptoms of somebody who has like diabetes, which is a little bit more standard, let's say.
Well, as a health coach, I wanted to ask you, what is your best approach when it comes to helping women with PCOS and their symptoms?
Yeah, so I would say I really believe that knowledge is power, and helping people understand their condition is something that I feel is like a cornerstone in terms of PCOS, because the more they understand something, the more they're actually able to take actions and empowered, let's say, food choices. Instead of just following this plan and telling themselves, oh, I can't eat this. At least they'll know why, like, okay, you know what? It's better for me not to eat this and choose something else because this is how it affects my body. And as a health coach, I just feel it's very important, especially for somebody who works with people who have sometimes difficult relationship with food where they kind of ban things. Just helping them understand really helps them reprogram and saying, like, you know what, I'm going to decide not to eat these foods because I'd rather take care of myself versus I can't eat this, or if not, I'm a bad person, right? So there's a little bit of a nuance there. So education, helping them understand what is contributing to their PCOS, I think is very important, because it's really going to influence a lot the kind of treatment that we have. So if I just go very quickly over what can influence that, is unbalanced blood sugar levels or insulin resistance. There's inflammation. There's also our health of our adrenals and also our stress resilience. There's also our thyroid that can contribute to PCOS. There is also the environment that we live in, or the products that we're exposed to, because several products do contain what we call hormone disruptors. And also when it comes to nutrition, for sure, there's nutrition that plays on insulin resistance, but also the lack of nutrients. And that can also cause us to not be able to ovulate correctly. So based on that, based on their symptoms and also their lifestyle, we're able to usually define what's their contributing factors. And from there, I really create a step-by-step approach to help them really implement things. Usually I work with clients around over 6 to 12 months. I like it to be kind of give them a longer container for them to actually implement, but also to address any obstacles that can come up. So the lack of motivations, life events, and especially being able to help reprogram their relationship with food and their bodies. I found just a longer container is really helpful. So to summarize that, it's to help them understand really what is PCOS and how it's presenting in their own life, creating a step-by-step approach that addresses their main contributing factors. And once we have that settled, we can talk about the other contributing factors, and also helping support them in terms of the mindset so that they can really be able to stick and commit to their overall health.
I love that, because what comes to mind is, while you're supporting women through this journey with PCOS, a question that comes up generally is how men can better support their partners or wives with PCOS, or just anybody who's going through this situation, as I can imagine it could be also really kind of life-changing to have to restructure your life in that way. So any advice on what we can share with men to support their partners?
Yeah, I really love this question, because often fertility in general, and also fertility is often considered a woman's burden, right? But it's beautiful to have the partners involved in this and helps better support their partners. So, I mean, on the top of my head, what I would say is, if the person can also really understand what causes PCOS, it's going to help them better understand how they can support their partner in terms of, okay, this is why we're going to have to make these food changes. This is why we're going to, let's say, do these certain activities. I feel like sometimes as a partner, it can be really great for them to serve sort of like an accountability partner, or at least help remind the person living with PCOS, okay, hey, remember, this is why you're doing these changes. When they see the other person, either their motivation dipping, which by the way is totally normal, right? Or they're just kind of in one of those moods where they're like, oh, I'm just going to give up on everything, and just kind of help them remember, like, okay, these are your reasons why you started this journey, and to as much as possible, while the let's say the partner, the husband, is not necessarily having to revamp their whole diet or their lifestyle, if they can at least, make certain changes so that it can, at least in the beginning phases, not have so much, let's say, temptations of like cookies or like, sweets and things like that around the house, for sure, that is really helpful. And in terms of, living with PCOS, and especially with any kind of fertility challenges, it is a lot of emotional ups and downs. A woman from what my clients have told me, sometimes can feel like their body is broken or that it's their fault, and for their partners to be there and be that kind of pillar of compassion and kindness to help them remember that your body's not broken. This is not your fault. We've got this. We're here. We're in this together. I feel is one of the most beautiful gifts that a partner can give to their loved one who's living with PCOS.
I love that. Likewise, any healthcare supporter like yourself that's looking to kind of help an individual overall in a holistic way is also a beautiful blessing and a gift. So thank you so much for your work as well. Just before we wrap up, I had just a few questions about, I know you had mentioned the importance of foods having a direct impact on our hormones, and potentially kind of impacting the hormone levels that we have. Are there any specific foods that come off the top of your mind that could help with hormone regulation, insulin resistance, and inflammation as it's associated with PCOS?
Yeah, so I mean, if we're talking about very specific foods, right? I would say one of the best things is for hormonal balance, not just for PCOS, but overall hormonal balance, is cruciferous vegetables. So that is like the broccolis, the kales, the Brussels sprouts, things, those kind of foods, because one, they have this component that really helps the body and especially the liver eliminate the excess of hormones, which sometimes in PCOS and hormonal imbalance is like an excess of estrogen. Another thing that's really important is fiber. To really help, again, with the metabolism of your hormones. And in terms of PCOS, it's not a very specific food. It's the idea of balancing your blood sugar levels. So in a nutshell, what that means is being able to, if your diet is like a very carbohydrate-centric diet, is being able to moderate that intake. So I say moderate just because I'm not the type to say, carbs are forbidden. Carbs have their beautiful benefits, right? But it's like important to like moderate their intake and to always combine them with a good source of protein, fiber, and good fats. This is really a formula to help what we call balance your blood sugar levels so that your body is then producing as much of a hormone called insulin that can dysregulate your other hormones in your body and contribute to PCOS.
Awesome. I know that you had shared a little bit about what it looks like to work with you over 6 to 12 months. I was wondering if you can share with us about your programs that are specifically helping women in their battle against PCOS and any other programming that you wanted to mention that work with you with.
Yeah. So in terms of different programs, so I have one that's more of a little free 5-day little mini program that's sent through email. So that's fun really to help you embrace what I call a more natural, sweet kind of way of eating, in the sense that reducing our refined sugars and adopting more natural sugars. And this is one of the ways to help balance our blood sugar levels. So that's like a little mini program. Another program that I have, like I mentioned, is that 6 to 12 months. And usually when I have like a free, what you call a connection call with the person, we usually determine, okay, what's the length of time that is needed to work together, and to really have that both that practical approach, but also the mindset approach. And if not, just in terms of overall health, so not for women who are just have PCOS, but are looking to develop a healthier lifestyle in a way that's sustainable, but also enjoyable. I do have a membership program that is opening up in January of next year. So those are like different ways to work with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie, for your time this morning. If you can quickly share with us where we can find you online and a little bit more about your social media handles so we can get in touch with you in the future.
Perfect. Yes. So first of all, thank you, Annu, so much for taking this time, for having this conversation together and sharing giving you a chance to share my knowledge on PCOS to help your community and your listeners. And in terms of where you can find me, so you can find me at juliedoanhealth.com, and Doan is Doan. And I'm also Julie Doan Health Instagram. That's where I'm most active on social media.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciated your time. And thank you everyone for listening.